And so speaking of VTubers, let's bring this up.
I no longer.
Okay, so how familiar? Oh yeah, any color is cooked. It's just a question of how long it's gonna take for them to be done. How long is it gonna take for them to actually be done? And we will find out. I kind of keep tabs on it, so we're gonna see. But for more VTuber news, uh, are you familiar with Kirsche? Kirsche the Fox. So Kirsche is she's got some pretty strong opinions. Um, Particularly when it comes to, the SJA/SJW kind of stuff. And she was scheduled to go on a panel at an upcoming con or an upcoming convention. And and she was contacted by the, I guess, the administration of this convention. No, she is not. She's very anti in that respect. She's very anti. She's done a lot of work talking about this. I don't know if it's a group or whatever called Bridge, that is essentially supplanting the DEI concept, where it's trying to inject essentially DEI into everything these days. So she's been talking about that. So no, she's very anti SJW. And she was due to speak on a panel at a con, uh, like a weeb con kind of thing, from my understand it. Not weeb con itself, but it was something similar. And she had, made arrangements and got everything ready. And when the administrators or the person running the con or whatever contacted her and told her that because uh, one or a couple of their volunteer staff were uncomfortable with her opinions that she has expressed on stream and on Twitter, because they were uncomfortable, they removed her from the panel. They said, we're taking you off the panel. And she tried to get some explanation, like, okay, I'd like to talk about this privately before, so I'm nice, so I'm not putting, so she didn't put them on blast publicly initially. I'd like an explanation. This, you're saying that a couple of your volunteers, because apparently it's all staffed by volunteers, don't like my subject matter, my opinions. What's the issue? And I think she even brought up the fact that, like, okay, if they don't like it, why assign them to a different part of the venue? They don't have to be part of my panel. And I think the examples that was provided to her was just some very, very mild Twitter stuff. Some of which were not even like opinionated. It was just correcting facts on something someone had tweeted and something. Nothing that would, like, she wasn't doing any kind of like raging white supremacy or anything like that. Not that she is that in the first place, but it was like the reasons were basically, in a nutshell. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This looked like a bunch of delicate little snowflakes that got their feelings hurt by something Kirsche said maybe more than once. And it probably wasn't even directed at them, and they couldn't handle it. So the very idea of Kirsche being a panelist at the convention they were going to work at just ruin their entire world. And they told their boss, they said, well, if she's coming, I'm not coming. And the boss sided with them instead of the panelist that was going to actually bring this convention money. So she said, fine, you know what? Uh, there was a whole lot of back and forth. There's been several videos regarding it. You should definitely check them out. Uh, but she's not going. And because of what happened, Rev, who we just saw, actually put out a video saying, I'm out too. When he found out what happened to Kirsche, him and his wife said, you know what, if you're going to do this to Kirsche, cancel my spot in the convention too. They had a spot in the convention I don't remember if it was a panel or something. It was through a third party. They actually said, you're doing this Kirsche, cancel us on it too. We're not coming. And I think more and more VTubers, and looks like this is what it's about. More and more VTubers, I think, are pulling support from this convention because of the way they treated them. So I think this is going to be interesting. Fortunately, it's a short little video. It's only 2 minutes, but let's check this out because I'm very interested to hear about this. Since, kind of in my world here, I'm a VTuber.
I no longer want to volunteer. I'm no longer going to go because of what happened. I can't stand by a company that does this kind of thing. And I was like, what the heck? That's crazy.
I would love to get an update from you, Kirsche, about this event that
That's a pretty cool VTube model that she's using there. It's that the black and white comic book pen style. That's actually pretty cool. I like that.
you were going to go to that you're no longer going to. Apparently, there's been a response to that, and people have been backing out. Can you talk about that a little bit?
The Japanese man boy.
Oh, shoot. Hang on. Let me back it up. I'm sorry. I forgot to make it visible. That's my fault. I'm sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. I thought I'd clicked on. I guess I didn't. Here we go.
I no longer want to volunteer. I'm no longer going to
So-
go because of what happened. I can't stand by a company that does this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a
And I
pretty
was like,
cool.
what the
That's
heck?
a
That's
really cool
crazy.
model that
I would love to get an
she's
update
got.
from you,
Thanks for
Kirsche,
telling me about the video not being
about-
up. Wiggle.
about this event that you were going to go to that you're no longer going to. Apparently, there's been a response to that, and people have been backing out. Can you talk about that a little bit?
The
Yeah.
Japanese.
Goodbye. Freaking bots.
Man boy monks association.
I was gonna go on a panel to a convention called Offkai. Offkai is like a VTuber convention.
Offkai,
in
that's where it
California.
is.
I know I came on here briefly and talked about it previously. Rev says Desu and his wife Straub, they're both pretty large content creators as well. And both of them were just like, we feel this is incredibly unfair treatment. There's no reason that we would be invited and welcomed to a place that she was, told that she couldn't go to. So we don't feel comfortable supporting a convention like this, and we're both going to pull out unless this gets fixed. And so I was I never expected anyone to pull out on my behalf, and I wasn't going to tell people, like, cancel your plans, cancel your tickets, screw your hotel costs. Like, I never would have said that to anyone. So, like, the amount of support that I got from people who were just like, this is ridiculous that they said you couldn't be there because a couple of volunteers threatened to walk because they didn't like your opinions.
So, in addition to some content creators, apparently there's been some volunteers that have also pulled out.
Yeah, I got an email this morning, and I mentioned it to Blabs. I don't have the email pulled up. I know they sent it to side scrollers as well.
Mhm.
And one of the volunteers, because the director said that, like, there were some volunteers who liked my content, and then the volunteers who were made uncomfortable by my content. And it surprised me. Like, I didn't think that he was being serious, because, like, if there's volunteers that liked my content, wouldn't they have said, well, okay, we'll cover the panel that she's on, so, like, you...
Yeah. First thing that just popped in my head now when she said that, because the impression I got from the original story was there were, content, there were volunteers that didn't like her content, and they quote unquote they felt uncomfortable with her content. And the impression I got was the other volunteers maybe either didn't know about it or didn't care. Not that if there were some that liked, I can't wait to see what she has to say about, if there were some that liked, why couldn't they have handled my panel instead of the ones that don't? I got a bad feeling there's going to be a really bad excuse here, but let's see.
You others don't have to. But this guy ended up saying, like, I no longer want to volunteer. I'm no longer going to go because of what happened. I can't stand by a company that does this kind of thing. And I was like, what the heck? That's crazy.
It's called morals.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's hard to find in showbiz sometimes, because people are just like, my morals don't matter. I can just make more money. I can get more exposure. Why have any sort of standards?
Wow. That's awesome. So it's not just we're starting to kind of see a crack in the SJA wall, where they're not all. You're starting to see cracks and starting to see divides where people are no longer saying just following blindly. They're actually starting to use their brains to go, yeah, I don't really agree with what you're saying here, so I'm not going to keep following along. And with Avkai, at least one volunteer said, listen, if you're going to blacklist a VTuber because Jane or Joe over here is butthurt over what she said here and there, and you're gonna ban her from showing up on the panel, then that's not a company I want to work for. It's the first glimmer that I'm starting to see where it's someone that's not working in that won't accept an extreme viewpoint. That because if there's an extreme viewpoint, they're like, nah, fam, I don't need this. I don't want to be in this kind of environment. It's my way. No, I don't like that. That's great. I hadn't seen that before. So I think that's great. I'm glad that I'm glad she found out about that and told us about that. That's cool. All right. I think I'm going to there. Well, see, in this case, it wasn't the audience. Because they were actually getting. It wasn't the audience that they were afraid of. Because Kirsche would have actually brought in an audience for her panel. So they would have made money, which is what is really surprising about the original story is that, she would have brought them in money for being on their panel. They would have had people attending for her panel. At the same time, they might have, gone to other vendors at the venue, and so that would have brought them in money. So it's not like this was never the attendees saying we hate Kirsche. If you bring in Kirsche, I'm canceling my ticket. It was never that. It was volunteers who worked at the venue. It was volunteers for Avkai itself, and not even all of them. It was only like one or a couple of them that said, I can't work here if Kirsche is going to be on panel. So it was never the audience to begin with. It was their own employees. And that's what was so surprising is that the administrator of Avkai didn't just immediately tell that employee or that volunteer, okay, you don't have to be here then. And instead sided with that one or couple of volunteers and removed one of their pen lists instead. So it doesn't exactly work that way.